Hello, friends, and welcome to Becoming Unbound, the podcast where we discover what it means to break free and live a life unbound. Today, we have Tara Carr on the podcast, and we are finding out how Tara embodies freedom, hearing her story on how she is becoming unbound, and all of the wonderful things that she is dabbling in her life. We're going to talk about all the deep diving questions, so let's dive in. Tara, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Carly. I'm doing great, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Tara, we met through what I would say is one of the biggest channels of freedom and embodying that in my life. We met through our coaching program, through the Kaylor Betts Wake and Winning program. So, the program is called now Awake and Winning, and I think we met in the life aspect of that. Do you feel that after your sort of process through that program, do you feel like you're awake and you're winning?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think even hiring or Kaylor as the coach and then being exposed to so many great people in his community was like the missing piece for sure. Because my life, I've just always did it on my own. It's kind of what I was taught. And I never even thought to outsource to look for others because it was just always me. So definitely awake and winning with a
Yeah.
community.
I love it. And now you're actually, maybe that's kind of where we can start, is that you are sort of embedded into that community now because you have a really special offering to us in that community, which I can speak so highly of. I love your sessions. So what is it that you offer? What's your newest adventure in this world?
Yeah. My newest adventure is I became a somatic breathwork practitioner. I had been introduced to somatic breathwork through a coach, which was Alyssa at the time, who was, and now I've kind of followed in the footsteps, learned the modality, joined with somatic breathwork, became a practitioner, and offer it to the group. And
That's amazing.
it's just really a way to kind of pay it forward. I know what it brought to my life, so I just want to bring that to other people's lives, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've had some of your sessions and yeah, profound to say the least, for sure. So, Tara, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to, what does your life look like? What does it entail? Day to day, month to month? What does it sort of look like? What's your journey been like?
Well, that's that's a loaded
I threw
that's
a
a
lot at
loaded
you there.
one. Yeah, I guess I'll give footnotes. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and my sister created this unique camping experience on Lake Superior. It's in northwestern Ontario. It's really cool. We're called Cypress Sleeper Barrels. Check it out because I could talk about that for an hour, so I won't take up the time. So I am an entrepreneur first. I have been for a long time in the real estate short-term rental. And then from there, it kind of gave me a bit of freedom already. And I get to practice. I also am an artist. I do string art. Um, so on my spare time, I get to do that, and not for a living though, because that's where I found I kind of hit a bit of a bump when it came to making money off of things that you love. So that one's just purely for my creative side. And then now, most recently, I have become a somatic breathwork practitioner and dabbling also in learning the energy space and just more towards healing. I'm seeing that nudge now, how much of us need that just exposure to it, different healing modalities for sure. So I'm all over the place.
I love it. I love it. But it sounds like to me, because you have that freedom to explore and have those hobbies in that space in your life, it sounds like sort of freedom and sort of breaking yourself out of that traditional sort of lifestyle. You are all about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I've always just known just as an entrepreneur, I've been that most of all and had many of jobs, so it doesn't come easy. You have to work at it. But that's it. You just have to follow what you are feeling called to do and play the game kind of.
Yeah.
Take
No,
freedom.
life
Yeah.
is a game. And if you treat it like that, it can be really, really fun.
Yeah. It's challenging
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So, was there a moment or a specific time and place that's like a core memory that you can sort of think back to and be like, "Oh, yeah, there's a different way to do life." Like, was there a moment that really came to you?
Yeah, you know what? This is the one thing I like about my childhood is, well, I like a lot of things, but the one thing that I like is the ability to just do whatever I feel and never lost that. My mom really nurtured that in me. She just, anything I was about to go do, she's like, yeah, we'll try. And then she never took over, never, so I would say to answer your question for that, I just always had it. Obviously it didn't come with its struggle. It came with its struggles. You have like, those limiting beliefs, those voices in your head that are trying to keep you safe, all the things. But I just really embraced that curiosity part of me, just to lean into things, try it, and just assess for threats. And most of the time, the threats aren't real.
Wow, amazing. Most of the fears that we have in our own minds are completely made up, and they're not actually real things to be fearful of. It's just stuff that comes up. And I feel like that comes up a lot when you're facing entrepreneurial challenges, facing things that, you're stepping into that unknown. Was there a moment when you stepped into an unknown place? Like, was there something where you're like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know that this is the feeling that I have to follow this energy or follow this curiosity.
Absolutely. That would be with my current project with Cypress
Mm.
Sleeper Barrels. Because if you look at the everything about it is in the middle of nowhere. We're about an hour and a half drive from any city that it would be close, and no one set the footprint for that. There's no excursion like that around our area where you just take a money that I've worked really hard for, like have this plot of land and then be like, now what? Like we know it's healing, we know that this could really be beneficial. How can we take it to the next level? And then we kind of just jumped right in. We found little tiny cabins that look like barrels with a bubble at the end that are here on Vancouver Island. So we're like, okay, those are them. So how do we get them over to Ontario? It was just the process. So it was just jumping into that, not having a clue what we were doing. Sure, I had a background in small rentals with Airbnb, but not in like a vacation retreat kind of way.
Wow, that's incredible. So it sounds like you're also giving people the experience of some sort of freedom from the everyday, from their normal life. Like you are offering an experience where they can just sort of go inwards literally into the barrels and then to sort of like find that space from like this crazy kind of systems that we have all around us, whether it's the 9 to 5 or their jobs or something like that. So do you find a lot of people like coming to you for that?
Yeah. When we first created the place, we set an intention. We're like, what do we want to provide? And it was like a place that people can just reconnect back to themselves and back to nature. If you have those two key factors, you know what you're doing, and like it's built in us, but we just have to kind of go back to those spaces. So even going when people come to like Cyprus, they think they're like really attracted by the barrel because it is cool. You get to stay in this thing that like, looks out onto the world. But you at the same time, when you get there, they just say how relaxed they are because you're hearing waves constantly. You're hugged by trees. You have nothing but nature around you. The internet service is not great. So all of these things just kind of you don't even have to know what's happening. And I said this before, we've been running for 2 years now. And one thing I've noticed in any kind of rental and Airbnb, people love to complain. It's like they're really good at it because they want to give feedback or, whatever. With this place, 2 years running, we do not have one complaint. So that to me is evidence that it's just nature. And then it's beautiful. And then there's a little bit of creativity and some of the comforts from home. So it's not, totally roughing it, but it's definitely bringing people back to themselves, which I didn't even think that would be like a present at the end of this journey for me, anyways.
That's incredible. I feel like that's offering a space where people can truly just sort of take that break from whatever they need and get into nature. That's a beautiful, beautiful offering.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So I'm excited. We've only just begun too. So,
Wow,
mhm.
that's amazing. Well, I'm going to link show notes. You can go check it out if you're in Ontario, or heck, if you're just anywhere in Canada. I feel like this would be such a perfect place. And now, can you go in the winter, or is it all seasons? What's the deal there?
Currently, right now, we're just more of a spring, summer,
Mm,
fall. Winters in Northern Ontario are rough. Like you're
yeah.
-40. And yeah, there's just too many factors as me wanting people to be safe
Yeah.
and being able to provide some warmth in that time. Yeah. But we do, and we're right on the highway of the Trans Canada Highway. So
Mm,
if you're traveling east to west, you will cross us. And there's tons to do in the area too without going full in on it. But most of the time people just hang out right at the barrels.
awesome. Oh, that's great. All right. So since you're offering this sort of freedom, how do you feel like freedom, and there's so many different, like everyone has a different version of freedom in their life. Like there are so many aspects of people's lives that they can feel free in. And what I'm really just curious about is, how do you embody that in your life? And how does that feel like something that you're really like embodying on a daily basis, on whether it's in your entrepreneurial business, whether it's in your health freedoms, like where do you find that little piece of freedom in your life?
I would say definitely with myself. It starts with myself. When I think of freedom, because you're right, that's a big umbrella to be under. There's so many factors. But I'll have to speak just to my experience in the last couple of years. And my freedom is just the ability to be authentically myself without even having those, like, with fear being a place that I can't do that, or the opinions of others, or just even the opinions of others. I just really authentically want to be myself leading into the world. And I know that sounds like kind of an answer that most of us have, but it's easier said than done. And I'm learning that currently. So, how I embody that freedom and how I'm practicing it, because I don't have it yet. I would love to say that I do. My ego loves to say that I do, let's just say, but I know internally I don't. So, how I embody that is through breath work, 100%. That is what brought me back, and understanding how this all works on a nervous system level, bringing me back to my body. Meditating would be one. Getting curious about when I get triggered. That's a huge one lately. We all get triggers, we all have them, but those triggers do have messages. And it is like the more that we can look into that and sit with those feelings that come out and really get curious about ourselves, the more we get to learn more. And then the more we get to understand why we're acting that way, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
100% freedom is that's being free of me, let's just say.
Yeah. So, yeah, finding that authentic voice and being able to live that no matter sort of who you talk to or what group you show up with. I remember listening to a podcast. It was Sarah Swain and Mark Groves, and they were just talking about how, and she runs the Monetize Your Mind, like big freedom conference, or just the big conference. Now it's a festival, I heard, in 2025. But she was talking about the ability to show up to clients, to your family, to everybody, and feeling that you can be your authentic self no matter what. And actually, in the last 4 years, we've often found that some of our voices are silenced in some ways. And she was really just explaining that if you can find a set of clients and people to surround yourself with, that is one of the biggest key pieces to finding freedom in your own life. Because if you can't show up authentically, then there's these little pieces of yourself that you're like putting away for that time. And those little pieces will always be sort of hanging out in the background, just being like, when do I get to be here? And then you end up not being who you want to be. So then how can you serve those individuals, right? How can you serve through breath work or through whatever business and entrepreneurial thing you're doing? How can you serve if your whole self isn't showing up there? And that was exactly, that brought me back to that right as you were talking about that, because it was like, yeah, and that's one of my goals as well. Again, it's all a process. We're all becoming unbound, and figuring out what that looks like, because it's never finished, right?
What does the end look like? That's what I get curious about. But you're right. And it's having patience. That's been a very big step forward. Having patience, being compassionate, and not being in a rush. all of those. Like it just really is like how well do you know yourself? I thought I did until I met this group and all these people in the last 2 years, and then I was like, nope, didn't have a clue. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, it's hilarious. You think back even 2 years ago, 4 years ago, like, who was I? What was I doing? I remember being in one of the calls, and Kayla asked, she said, who has found their North Star? And I, like, put my hand up so high, I was like, "Yeah, me!" And then it was like a year later, I was like, oh no, no, I changed everything. And he helped me sort of like figure that out and understand that change is great and know that like that was a journey. At the time, I did feel like it was right. And then my nervous system took a dive and it was sort of like figuring out, oh, maybe there's different layers, that onion that we all are, that like what is going on underneath that year. And then the next year comes, like it's wild to see what we can peel back and figure out. And yeah, if 2 years ago I was in a completely different place, I'm so excited for what 2 years from now is going to look like.
absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. And then I think of the peeling that I can definitely that resonates with me because I think of it all the time. And imagine if you didn't have those layers, you'd probably explode. Like if you tried to like just unload all of your authentic self out after being suppressed for so long, like you do, there's a way to work with it.
Yeah, it's like small baby steps to that freedom, because if you go all in, like, it can be a lot on your nervous system and on your, and all about that, like it's almost too much. And then yeah, it can be a lot. So those little baby steps, those little teeny inches forward. And that's why actually I just changed my podcast name, or before I was sort of planning everything, and it was originally Unbound, just the word Unbound. And then I realized that, there's lots of other podcasts that have that name in it. And so I just went with the safe route, and I loved what came next. It was Becoming Unbound. And that really resonates way more with me, and I feel like way more with the guests that are coming on, just to know that like it is a journey. We are never at the place where it's like, okay, yep, I'm free, I did it. It's like, no, there's always going to be another layer, another level to uncover, whatever it is that we are here to explore in this wonderful human experience.
Yeah, it's exciting once you get through the emotions that come with it, and all the things.
So now that we've sort of uncovered how you are living life and embodying freedom and becoming unbound, if someone were to come to you, or maybe a version of yourself that was ever feeling stuck, or what would your advice be to someone who feels like there's another way of living life that isn't, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or that they're stuck in like an old pattern of thinking and they just can't get out of it, or there's fears coming up that are just stopping them from, stepping into that wild unknown? What would you tell them, or what would you tell a previous version of yourself?
Knowing what I know now, what I would say is just remind you on the edge of that fear, there is transformation. You know, that's why they say hang out by the edges and then just get curious. You don't have to go full in. Maybe take those baby steps that we were telling you, like you were just saying, just get curious about that fear and really get to know yourself. You know, there is on the edge of that fear, there's transformation, and lean into it, baby step it. What does that look like? The tiniest baby step. Once you do it, check in with yourself. How do you feel? Is your heart palpitating? Are you just like wanting to run? Notice those. Find the tools that help you regulate through that. Revisit the thing. There's steps to do this. You don't have to go full in. You don't, you get stuck in these things. But having that little roadmap, having a community, that's a huge one that can help you through that. And then hiring those coaches, hiring those mentors. It's okay to ask for help. That would be, I think, the best advice I could even give to my younger self that didn't know this existed and was kind of blindfoldedly like going through it, you know. That has its place too, but it is easier. So just on the edge of that fear, transformation.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Sort of like truly embodying, like living on the edge. And I feel like that may seem like the scariest place to live, or that feels very like edgy or dangerous, but living on the edge. Yeah. Cause you're always stepping up to the next sort of place in your life that you can go to versus just sort of staying back on the shore and like looking out. Like you can see that and it's a beautiful view, but what happens when you do like dip your toe in and just like find out what that is? I love that you said just getting curious. Yeah.
And it's
And I think
okay. It's
yeah.
okay to be scared. That's the other thing. We all try to be so brave and, let's go through it, or, or maybe we're going to back up a bit because we don't know how this fear is. But being okay, like fear is a normal emotion, and just getting familiar with it and just being able to be with it and let it, feel it fully. That's usually really helpful too.
Yeah, I really love that. It feels like that feeling of is your heart palpitating? I always compared it to like, do you feel like you're going to, pardon my French, shit your pants? Because if you don't feel that way, it's either not big enough or it like that's the golden spot. Like, is your stomach like turning upside down? Can you feel your body like really being super scared, nervous, excitement, like all those little butterflies in your tummy? Like if that's the feeling, like keep going. That means you've reached the edge and let's take that next step through it because on the other side of that is you don't know what it is, but it could be something wonderful and way more powerful than you ever thought in your entire life. Like things could ever come out that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, because I think that's where people get tripped up, is when they think of these things and they're like, oh, I couldn't do that, or I'm just terrified, or like like that's the part. That's when you have those thoughts. Get curious about it. You don't have to go do it. Just notice it. Notice
Mm,
the fears there. Notice what are the thoughts coming up when this idea of what you want to step into comes up, because there's clues in that. What are your beliefs around that? And then you can use that as a map to know where you are at with your nervous system. We won't go full in it, but yeah, just getting curious. That's the best for sure.
yeah. And knowing that you don't have to do it alone. You mentioned that of just community. Like, yeah, before, I mean, I had done a little bit of talk therapy, trying to figure out how that all works. But it was like for the first time when sort of popped on a call with Kayla, our coach, it was sort of like, oh, whoa, there's an entire group of people that could help me go through this. And I could talk to other people, like minded, other people who value the same things as me. And then it just felt so incredible to then all of a sudden know that I can walk alongside people and that if I ever sort of fell down, like I could pop on a group call or I could reach out to someone in the group and like knowing that there was this community around me was something that I almost like you said bumbling around in the dark and then figuring out like oh no wait there is a whole group of people who want help, who can give advice, who can just be listening to me and the things that are going through. And if I need that advice, Papa Kaler was in there to give it to us. And if you just need a space to talk it out and just to have sounding boards. And I think that was the one thing that when I have finally stepped into a more aligned version of myself, those community members and those friends and relationships were all of a sudden like felt like I could actually relax into them versus showing up to be that other friend. And of course, those aligned friendships are, it takes time to sort of evolve, but having that community around me was, yeah, it was life changing. Knowing that you don't have to do it alone.
It's a key for sure. And then finding the right people, like you've mentioned, that think, have similar beliefs, not exactly the same. It's always nice to have that diversity,
Hmm.
but the
Yeah.
ones that like I remember being like, whoa, I can tell somebody this is bugging me or I'm having these thoughts. Like, sure, you could do that with a therapist, but to do that in a community setting, in a call, and be like, I remember those calls. They were hard at first. But just being able to talk and people hold space, that was another one. Someone actually listened to me. What? Like, all these things, just really the support. Yeah, the support is definitely needed. And I truly adore the Life Academy for that, and Kaylor and you and the whole community for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This podcast is just an entire plug.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But it really
It's
was like
truth.
it's
It is.
I would say to a younger version of myself that go find an aligned community, like
Yeah.
immediately. Go find those people because that level of support where you can practice showing up as your authentic self, all of a sudden you're like, well, if I can show up in a call, or if I can talk to a friend that shares those same values or alignment. And again, like, I love that you said it's not everything, but if I can practice in these little baby steps to show up as my aligned self in these groups, in these relationships like that, then I can take out to the real world and show up to, a discovery call, or to a new friendship, or to a coffee shop where I can just practice being my authentic self. And then it all of a sudden feels like, okay, well, if I can do this in the safety of my own home, I can start to do this out in the real world.
Yeah. We have to reprogram ourselves. I'm not going to say everybody, but I would put a lot of us in that bucket. Is we've been suppressed, we've been taught away since we were young, and developed these beliefs, and now we have to kind of untangle them, untangle the chain of which we are, and the best way to do that is through a supportive community, for sure, and a positive one, and one that have different outlooks, not just one who's like, one idea and we're going to go this way. I need,
Yeah.
like, give me that diversity, please, because it keeps you in check too.
Yeah. I think important also to not stick yourself in another echo chamber,
Yeah.
and to be able to hear different views, and to have those different perspectives that are like, oh, I think you could go that way. Oh, I think you could go that way. It's like, okay, great. And then keep your own counsel, understand that like all these wonderful community members can help me out. And then I can also make really wonderful, informed, authentic decisions about how I want to start to take away these shackles, or these sort of chains that have either held me back through my own mind and my limiting beliefs and things like that. And then hopefully that translates into some action in your own life.
And it will. And then the ones around you. It really does ripple out. It's so cool to see.
So, in your process of stepping into that unknown, and living on that edge, have you found that taking those risks or embracing the unknown, like how does that play out or shape your sort of journey that you've been on? Is to take those risks and to see the unknown and know that there's just something on the other side of that veil, or that stepping stone, or whatever it is. How has that shaped your sort of perspective on the world?
Say it definitely has built my confidence in a way that I have never known. Because the more that I do these little steps, and then they may be a little bigger and even bigger, all of a sudden I have evidence that this belief that I had is no longer here. And then it just built my confidence up. So then I go to the next step. Okay, what's the next project? What else is I'm getting a little scared of? You know, that's kind of how it's shaping it now. It's still coming out. I have my struggle still. But then now when I find a struggle, I'm like, ooh, do I have the time to unpack this? And then, build and help me with my confidence going forward. That's like the best way I could say it's shaping me right now. Is because I am building that confidence. I'm building that awareness of myself. And I get to show up authentically. I'm not there yet, but I will be. So that's how I see it shaping my world. And then the sky is the limit. I mean, I have no problem dreaming, that's for sure. So now it's just following through and telling myself those dreams are actually achievable and safe.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you said the stacking the evidence, that you and building your confidence to know that, like, if I could do that, then the next thing, I've already shown myself the evidence that I can achieve something that I've never done before, or step into sort of a place that's maybe similar to what I've tried before, but you already have that confidence to be like, well, if I can do that, of course I can do this next step. Maybe I don't know what's coming in this next step, but I have that already built. And I think evidence stacking of like, okay, if I can step into, I would relate this to like every year I used to step into like a new classroom, or step into a um, new classroom, whether it was daily through supply teaching or through a new school. Like, I'm like, no, I have the confidence to step into new spaces. Now, how does that translate into stepping into a new career, or a new friendship, or a new relationship, or even stepping into a new coffee shop that I've never been in before? But stacking that evidence, being like, okay, no, I've already done this. It should feel like I'm excited, but I've already done it. So what's the worst that could happen?
You just
Yeah.
you get those reps, I call them.
Yeah.
Get those reps and you're like, okay. And a lot of the times too, if you have a failure, which I'm like more embracing failure, it's because like you're gonna look silly doing it anytime. It's not gonna look pretty ever. But just embracing that, and then you build your confidence. You're like, okay, like I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like that's the best way to say it. I am now. I go into place, I'm like, oh, I know I look this way, but it's kind of funny watching people react to how I'm reacting, and then yeah, it just yeah, it's fun. Life is getting fun, and
Yeah.
for a time there, it didn't feel like that, and just all the things we've mentioned previously, it's nice to see. So building confidence is definitely shaping my future forward for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're not taking yourself too seriously either.
Oh, never.
I love that. Yeah, because those fears can really all of a sudden be like, okay, well, if I like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you kind of feel like you need to get serious because it feels like whether it's financial stresses or whether you're stepping into, new relationships or being judged or shamed or stepping into anything that feels new and unknown, it can feel really serious. And you can get kind of like bogged down by understanding like, oh, this is how I want to show up and this is what I need to do. And that serious tone, all of a sudden, when you start to like practice letting that go, then all of a sudden you can step into new situations. You're like, oh yeah, I failed hard. I fell down and it was scrappy and it was messy and it was cringy. But oh, look, I'm still here. Like I'm still okay.
I survived.
Yeah, I survived.
Yeah, those like looking at things that way, perspective shift is if like that's another constraint. If you care what others think, I know all of us do, but just letting it go little by little, knowing that it doesn't have to look a certain way or the expectations. Just knowing, acknowledging that they're there. Just saying, like, I don't care what other people think. I used to say it all the time. And now I'm like, oh, whoa, wait, I do care. Like, so, and then I got curious about that, you know? So it's like, well, this is one thing. If you care what others think, or if you have like fixate on an outcome of something, that is going to hold back your authentic self. I'm learning that more and more. So just, be like, okay, I'm going to look like a goof, but let's go. Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Mm.
It brings me back to, well, I'm doing a 90-day podcast challenge right now as we're recording, and then eventually this recording will be out. But I'm building sort of that practicing through understanding what it's like to build a podcast and then also understanding what it's like to show up on social media. I look back and I don't know what day I'm on now, but in this, it's sort of like figuring out that I look back on day one and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cringy. And I'm, even my voice, even my authenticity in my voice and how I'm speaking and all that stuff, it's so great. And now I look back and I'm just also having that compassion for that person who I was 30 days, 60 days ago that just showed up and did the damn thing and then say, wow, yeah, you do look goofy. You do look a bit cringy, but like, fuck yeah, you did that. And you showed up knowing that like it, people might reject you. People might also have a little laugh like, oh, look at her trying, but I did it. And so now everything I do moving forward is like, oh, I've already done the cringy part. Like anything that comes cringy now, like it cannot be cringier than it was on day one. And that comes for I feel like any adventure, anything that you step into, a first day on a new job, first day in an entrepreneurial role, first friendship date, first date, even like just have that cringy part. Don't take yourself too seriously. And then boom, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh yeah, remember when I did that weird thing and I'm still here and I survived? And like, I love the idea of just building up that confidence. And then you can look back, have some reflection, get curious and know like, yeah, I did it already. So anything is like up from here.
I
Yeah.
love I love how you said you went back and went, but I did it. Like you remembered the good. We're so good at like picking ourselves apart, looking at the negative. I think we were told we were wired for that. So when you come back and you're like, but I did it. Like that's so important. I love that you did that. Cause yeah,
Yeah.
it was you. I've been watching your journey with the on Instagram and I love it. I'm a fan. So
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. But you have to be your own number one fan, right? Like I could do this for other people and what they're going to see and building my own business and whatnot, but I'm ultimately like and I think a lot of the coaches that I've met thus far is always the entrepreneurial journey is also a journey of the soul, of the self. And like, it's amazing who you find out you are through the entrepreneurial journey. And you've been on this journey for sounds like quite a while now. And I feel like I'm just stepping into that, but it feels really just powerful that I can experience this version of my soul and like allow myself to express it through the fears, through the unknown, through the risk taking and living on the edge. Like, you really find out what is going on under these layers that we all have.
Your passion shines through. It shines through very bright. So, yeah, I'm here
Thanks,
for it.
Tara. So
You're welcome.
I'm curious, was there ever a moment where you in your life, it sounds like your childhood was very nurturing, very much like you got to explore your curiosities, explore your authentic self, live on those edges for a lot of your life. Was there ever a time where you felt stuck? Did you ever have a conventional job or a conventional sort of train of thought? Like, was there a time that you ever felt stuck or shackled by something?
Yeah, absolutely. All the way through.
Mm,
Even though I tend to talk about the nicer parts of childhood
yeah.
because that's just what I focus on going forward. I say that it serves me more. My childhood was challenging to say the least. I did not have a community, family members that just knew how to nurture a child, let's just say. So going forward, that was kind of my footprint going forward. So that was acceptable moving through life. A shackle, I think one that would be useful to share would be the challenge that I had was my relationship with alcohol. That would be one that I broke free of. I'm running on a year clean, which is like I never really thought of it as a issue because it was just I've learned to manage stress and my emotions through using alcohol. And I never thought it to be a problem until, life really ramped up. And then I was drinking every day. It wasn't an obscene amount, but every day just to, I didn't know how to feel. I wanted to numb. And then it turned into, it was the only thing that brought me relief. And then it slowly like consumes your life. And I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, this is not serving you, and I knew I had to do something about it, but I wasn't really sure how because it was the only thing that brought me comfort, safety, all the things. But on the other end of that, it would have slowly killed me for sure. So that would be the most useful because I know, fill in the blank coping mechanism. We all have them. And if not looked at, they can take over and then we lean into them. So that's why I was just so thankful to find somatic breathwork and to find somatic work in general, community, because leaning into all those things, being able to get back into body, feel my emotions, regulate stuff, it taught me a way to deal with stress and emotions healthy and not have to lean into that part of me that like to use because that part is like it was born to protect me. It doesn't have to make sense that I learned safety with that with alcohol. And then so being able to really just tap in to breath work, somatic work, feeling how things felt in the body, and then I could really regulate and then deal with a more of a healthy lifestyle, I will have to say. So that would be breaking through a limitation because liquor or drinks were definitely my limitation. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I feel like I saw like a thing about, it was like an old guy who was having a cigarette and a drink, and it was like, no, thanks. I like to feel my life raw, like, or I like to feel the emotions very raw. And I think that that's really hard to do because we do all around us. We have this instant access, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, anything that you can put your finger onto. It's probably like a drive away or like just a little while away. And I feel like it's really hard to see that because it can just look like one a day or two a day. And then all of a sudden that crutch is just there all the time. And it's a difficult one to break out of for sure. I definitely feel like, yeah, those things can creep up and then all of a sudden you're like, it becomes this pattern and then you're in this habitual life. And yeah, so I commend you for breaking out of that. And it's, so again, probably always evolving and getting curious about what that looks like. I'm going to keep that get curious about those little things because they're not bad or good. It's just, can you get curious about that habit, about that crutch, about that thing that is probably shackling you from the next best, healthiest place to be in your life, right? And how is it showing up? Why? And all the stuff behind it. And I love that you've replaced it with somatic breath work. And that's so cool. I'm such a fan of breath work. It's really a wonderful tool, and it gets you to a place where you can actually like feel different things. You can feel like that elevated bliss state that is like that can be seen and felt through those other crutches and all those more unhealthy decisions. But wow, you actually found something. And I can say I found something as well that gets me to those bliss states without having sort of the unhealthy repercussions and the toxicity loads in our bodies.
It's just coming back to your body and getting curious always. That's like, just use that word, getting curious. Why, our bodies give us messages. Right now, our modern day society values the mind. So when we have these sensations of palpitated heart, oh, I don't feel good in my body, or, what would be a sensations, emotions. We don't know how to process them. We don't know how to sit with them. I'm not going to say everybody, majority, because we weren't really taught to. And the way that we live has disconnected us from our body. So you have to find those things that get you back tuned with your body, sitting with emotions. How does it feel? Because it's just communicating to our minds, but we're just numbing because we don't know how to do it. So we're like, okay, where's that drink? Where's that cigarette? Where's that credit card? I'll go shopping. Where's that, fill in the blank. Whatever makes you feel numb, good from like whatever you are avoiding, that is definitely, it's like, so breathwork, somatic breathwork, even at that, if I could just put a pin or a bug in someone's ear to get curious about breathwork, go and find out if that is something for you, because it really does help regulate your nervous system, all the things. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a state shifter. I do it, and it's now become a daily practice. It's honestly fantastic. I have this really, really cool app. Maybe I'll plug it, but like Othership, it's a place in Toronto, and they actually have a breathwork app as well. And they have, whether it's a full journey of an hour, half hour, or you can do just like little snippets. And sometimes, I just need that little bit of extra guidance because those sessions are really great and it takes like that level of commitment. But if I need something on a daily basis just to wake up, shift my state, and it's so cool because in the morning, I can just feel that bliss state or that like tingling in my body and get really, really connected, get curious. And then I feel like it just sets me up for the whole day to like make really great decisions. Cause it's like, okay, I took care of myself first. And here I go. I can make all of these sort of wonderful things because I've already experienced this beautiful place. And I just, yeah, I love everything that breathwork can do for that, for people. It's a
Short and
beautiful offering.
You can do it short in the morning or go for the journey. There's tons of different ways to go about it. And then
Yeah.
really just taking that time to consciously breathe, even on like a physical level. And then how do you want to feel for your day? Like, call in how we get to choose these things. And sometimes, we're kind of constrained by something else that we forget that. So yeah, I love breath work. Yeah, forever.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk about it forever.
Yeah.
All right, Tara. Well, it's been so wonderful having you on the podcast. I'm so happy that we got to sort of connect both. We got to connect in person, which was so wonderful. And we've sort of been that accountability buddy. I would say to anyone that if you can get yourself an accountability buddy, it's a game changer. And I feel like we're pushing ourselves to those edges. And I really appreciate you for that. So if you want, tell anybody where to find you, where, you've got many, many wonderful entrepreneurial adventures going on. So tell us all where can we find you and what do you do?
Hey, well, you can find me currently on Instagram. That would be the best way to come and
Mhm.
find me. My personal page has all my links to all my others, my business, Cypress Sleeper Barrels, and Tara Carr String Art. It's TZ, TEASIE. I think there's an underscore in there. I'll share it with you at the end.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show
But
notes.
reach out through there. A lot of times I do a lot of my work on the ground in person, as far as meeting people, but I am opening up my platform online, where I'm going to do more one-on-one breathwork sessions online. and just have a bigger outreach to people. So I will be building more of that.
Amazing. I would say highly recommended. Definitely your sessions were honestly life-changing. I have to say. Like I told the story about that session that I had with you to someone else and they were like, "Whoa, that's really, really powerful." And I sort of it connected a lot of dots that like I got curious and now it's resonated until this day. Like it's amazing. So highly recommended. Thank you so much, Tara.
Love that. You're welcome. And it,
Yeah.
it is really just creating container for you. I build the space, and then finding the right music and the right cues and reading you. But it is just holding space for you while you get to go in and you get to do it yourself and really connect back to yourself because that's what it is all about, you know. So thank you though.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tara. Thank you for coming on the podcast. And I hope you continue to live your wonderful, flowing, unbound life.